Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hi, welcome to the July 31st edition of Basis Loaded with Joe Schmit. I am Joe Schmit. This episode, as always, is produced by Paige Driscoll with help from the entire EverAg Insights team. It is the final day in the month of July. This is our final NDPSR report for the July calculation. Let's dive right in. Starting with butter. This butter number coming in at 310.26 represents a -1 to the CME 1-week average of 311.40. -1 is, of course, negative basis. And once again, as this butter market hovers around this 310 area, the manufacturer is having a hard time calling normal basis at that level. We traded 17 loads on the CME last week, so a little bit of volume at the CME may have pulled that basis down a little bit when you pull the freight allowance out. All in all, though, I think minus basis at this high end of the range, and the big win was that the butter manufacturer was able to move almost 3.6 million pounds last week, as shown on this report. That's big volume for the butter, and 2 weeks in a row that the volume on the NDPSR report surpassed the expected 3.5 million pound threshold. So the manufacturer having no trouble moving butter, but having to discount a little bit to get it gone. Up next is cheese, starting with the blocks. This block number at 194.82 represents a flat basis to the CME 1-week average of 194.85. So prices at the CME moving up a little bit. Here on the NDPSR, prices moving down week to week. That's a big contraction in basis, and that's what we have here. Flat basis on this week's report. The next week at the CME, we're down sharply, so maybe some of next week's pricing fell into this week. Any way you want to cut it, flat basis is a little bit disappointing. Even further disappointment stems from this volume, 9.4 million pounds. So the manufacturer had to discount at the high end of the cheese range at the CME in order to move product. And then, even then, still had an inability to move a large amount of weight. 9.4 is well below our expected 12 million pound threshold for the block. So certainly a disappointment on both price and volume in the block. Moving on to the barrel, 195.33. That represents a +5 basis to the CME 2-week average of 190.50. So +5 also right in the middle of our expected 4 to 6 cent positive basis. So maybe a little bit of a win for the manufacturer on price that they were able to achieve normal basis. However, at that normal basis, once again, this volume slips below the expected 13.5 million pounds, falling short of even 11.3 million pounds. So disappointing volume in both blocks and barrels, and honestly lower than expected basis. What is surprising is that if you use the 1-week average in block and the 2-week average in barrel, you have essentially a 4 cent block over barrel relationship. But because of the flat basis in blocks and the positive basis in barrel, here once again, even though prices have flipped a little bit at the CME temporarily, on the NDPSR, the barrel still carrying a 0.5 cent premium to the NDPSR block. Certainly a relationship that will be interesting to watch in the weeks to come. Up next is whey, 46.05, and that, of course, is a -5 to the CME 1-week average of 49.70. Now, negative basis is nothing new, as prices at the CME have moved rapidly higher. The NDPSR whey prices have taken a little while to acclimate to this new price neighborhood. As always in whey, we're talking about prior week's NDPSR. So this week we're going to look at the July 13th value of 44.62. So the manufacturer was able to call a premium of 1.5 pennies over prior week's NDPSR. And that's the big number that you want to keep an eye on. So 1.5 pennies over and at that elevated level relative to prior week's NDPSR, the manufacturer was able to move almost 5.4 million pounds. So about 900,000 pounds above our expected 4.5 million. Manufacturer in whey was able to sell a lot of product at an elevated level. Certainly a win there. And then lastly, non-fat, 118.66. That represents a plus half a cent to the CME 1 week average of 118.05. We traded 26 loads on the CME last week, and that weight showed up here on the NDPSR. Look at that, just 200,000 pounds short of our expected 20 million pounds. So the manufacturer was able to move product at a little bit of a premium and move a lot of product at the same time. Almost 20 million pounds, close to our expected volume threshold, maybe a harbinger of the higher prices that we're seeing this week at the CMEs. So, as I mentioned before, this is the final week of July pricing. Today's Class 3 July final is 1979, 4 cents under where the futures went off yesterday at 1983. A lot of that discrepancy is from the lower than expected cheese prices. Class 4 final for July coming in at 21.31. If you carry current CME equivalents out through the entirety of the August 5-week pricing cycle, currently getting an August Class 3 of 2025 and an August Class 4 of 21.20. So that Class 3, Class 4 spread narrows to just under $1. We'll see what they have in store for us in the weeks to come. Until then, on behalf of Paige and the entire EverAg Insights team, thanks so much. See you next week. Bye.